Hi, everybody. What'd you think of the show? I watched the same 2 hours this morning and was like, I need to watch number 3 right now. Because it's a 2-hour premiere on November 7th, so tell all your friends on Nat Geo. I'm Jim Halterman, West Coast Bureau Chief of TV Guide Magazine, and we've got some cast members here to find out a little more about making the film and this whole project. So let's start bringing people out. First up, he plays Lieutenant Colonel Gary Volesky, Michael Kelly. And playing LeAnn Volesky, Sarah Wayne Callies. She plays Gina Denomy, Kate Bosworth. And playing Sergeant Eric Bourquin, Jon Beavers. And as PFX Tomas Young, NoelFisher. Welcome, everybody. You guys are having your premiere tonight, right? That's exciting. I wanted to share some with you guys. Matt Roush, who's our critic at TV Guide Magazine, he gave this show 5 stars out of 5 stars, which he does not give anything 5 stars, but he loved it. And he said, the series sustains tension as it authentically portrays the panic and mounting desperation of the troops. Honoring this brotherhood and their families makes this a road worth traveling. I agree with that. Do you guys agree? Yeah, such good stuff. So congratulations, everybody. First of all, I mean, this comes from source material. Martha Raddatz wrote a book based on her interviews and spending time in Iraq. She really was in with all these people that you're seeing portrayed in the film. What did you guys know going into this? Did you all grab her book, or did you go by the script? Kind of talk about just getting familiar with what happened. We can start with you, Michael.
Yeah, I think, well, for me, it was, I read the scripts first, and I couldn't put them down. You know, I read 4 that night and 4 the next day, and I was just blown away. So then, of course, I got the book and read the book, and to see the source material from which it came, and then I watched endless videos of her interviewing Gary and pieces on Gary, and you just try to soak up as much as you could, and everybody, you know, did that. Like, everybody really wanted to do the best they could to portray these real people.
How about everybody else when you started digging into this a little bit?
Well, you know, in a way, Michael and I were in an interesting position because for the whole time that I was shooting and most of the beginning for him, Gary was getting his 3rd star as a general, and so things for LeAnn and Gary were pretty busy. So I know some of these guys, you know, worked pretty closely with the people they play and their families, but for us, I think a lot of it had to do with asking other people about them. You know, the Voleskys are pretty humble people who will tell you they didn't do anything. And so talking to other people about what they really did do was pretty key.
Kate, how about you? Because your character seems a little newer to this. Like, she has the baby, and maybe this is the first time her husband's been off. I'm not sure if that's accurate.
Yeah, so I played Gina, and she was incredibly generous with me. I was able to speak with her on the phone at length right before I started filming, and then either spoke with her every day or texted with her every day. And, you know, it really became ironic because I felt this, I think when you play someone and have their life in your hands, there's such a responsibility and a real kind of honor to portray it as truthfully as possible. And so there's a lot of pressure that can come along with that. And so I remember on day 1, Sarah, it was like our most emotional, intense scene of the entire series. And we literally walked on set and I was like, nice to meet you. Like, we're diving in, like, and then after I was like, oh, thank God for her. Like, you know, it's like you really become very close very quickly when you're bearing your soul to someone you don't know. But that day I remember texting Gina and saying, I have a tall order today. And she just said, you will be great, I believe in you. And so the kind of beautiful irony is that she ended up being like an incredible source of inspiration and support for me, even though she had gone through the real experience. I was just portraying it. But she's an incredible woman. I was really, really lucky and honored to have her in my life. Yeah.
And Jon and Noel, I mean, what did you guys do in preparation and just when you dove in?
Well, I had a unique advantage and responsibility, but advantage ultimately in that Eric Bourquin, who I play in the series, was a technical advisor on this show. So he was on set almost every day, and generous is the right word. He was from the very beginning. He believed I could do it before I believed I could do it, and he's a hell of a guy. And on top of that, we had this incredible set, this massive theme park sized set to work from, and it was, by their account, it was eerily accurate. That it was spooky for them at times. They felt that they were back on the streets of Sadr City where this thing had gone down. So I could ask Eric before we started a take. I could say, hey, in this next moment here, I'm gonna lead the guys and we're gonna take this corner and then take this building. Do you mind, if you got 5 minutes, will you show me how it actually happened on the day that we're recreating? And then we could literally have that conversation. So it makes your job, if it sounds like my job was easy, it really was when you have that kind of support system. So
You also have like a 6'5" Army veteran standing over you the whole time. Being
no, there was a sense of responsibility.
You can do it like that?
He gave me a hard time. Yeah, he gave me a hard time for sure.
It's not always easy.
On occasion, but more support than that. So.
Noel, talk about your experience, and the scenes like the ambush scene that we see. Like there must be really intense choreography in something like that as well. If you guys can talk about shooting some of those scenes.
Yeah, I mean, the scope of the show. You've only seen the first 2 episodes, but it just goes more and more and gets bigger and bigger. And that I'm constantly kind of stunned when I see any of the footage about. Because we didn't have that much time to like put some of these things together, and that goes to show, it was amazing to have guys like Eric and the rest of the technical advisors there to kind of show us what to do because we didn't know. But yeah, to the other thing, I was also in kind of a unique situation with my character because Thomas is no longer around, but I was able to speak with his mother and his brother and the rest of his family. And there's also just a lot of footage of him. There's an entire documentary called Body of War on him. There's a book that I got to kind of dive into called Tomas Young's War. So I felt really kind of blessed to be able to speak to all the people that knew him most intimately and hopefully be able to add that to what I was doing on screen.
If you guys don't know, each episode focuses on one of the characters. It kind of still hits everybody, but you guys have episodes later in the run that really dig in deeper to your characters, which is great. Because I know after the first 2 hours, I was like, I want to know more about everybody, which is, I guess, a testament to the film, is that it wasn't just like, okay, some bad stuff happened, but you're like, no, I want to make sure these guys make it. Talk about just the production, because this was not on a soundstage. You can tell this, but where did you guys shoot, and how was it created? As much as you know.
We actually lived on Fort Hood, the military base there in Killeen, Texas, and it's like I had a duplex, and the other half of my duplex was a military family, and it's just regular, everyday life for them. For an outsider coming in, you go to do a film or any television project, they put you in like nice hotels and you get like really super treatment, and it was none of that. Like it was, you lived on a base in hundreds of acres, the largest military base in our country, and it was wild, man. It was wild to live that, and they built that whole set there, and the Army was so great to us, so generous in everything they did with us. So yeah, it was a different adventure, that's for sure.
And I love that the families are a big part of the show as well. Was it the same for you, Sarah and Kate, as far as living on Fort Hood and being immersed in all that?
Yeah, we didn't live on post.
We were at the Shiloh Inn.
We were at the Shiloh Inn, which
which honestly, it's
which
like
is exactly what you're picturing in your head.
yeah. Except add the smell of kitty litter and put a strip club across the street. Kate actually sent me a text. Remember there's one day we came home and she was like, look out your window. And I was like, what's going on? And it was like, it's cops, Shiloh.
There's a shootout.
There was a shootout at the Shiloh Inn. And that's, I think, the nicest hotel in Killeen. Like, this is a military post. And the first time I was trying to get to somebody's house on base, it was like turn left on Tank Destroyer Boulevard, and I was like, and it's a Tank Destroyer Boulevard. I was like, okay, we're not in Hollywood, and I think that was a great gift for all of us. It would have been really weird to go home and to like take a hot shower and fancy sheets and order room service. I think it gave us a real sense of where we were.
What did you hear from the people that you were interacting with, whether they were in the room next door or just in the town? Were they asking a lot of questions about the production just because they wanted to make sure it was done accurately or done well? What did you guys hear from people?
Well, we went a step beyond just living next to these guys. One of the, I think, really crazy parts of this series that we don't get to talk about enough is that a lot of the what would be considered background actors, a lot of the non-speaking roles, which are obviously very important, in these battle sequences especially, are fleshed out by active duty and retired military. Some of these guys were assigned as part of their active duty to be in this series.
Your tax dollars at work.
Yeah. One guy actually reached the end of his term during the show. So he, all but retired from the military on set and then just kept pretending to be a soldier for another month and a half. But these guys were exceptionally, we keep saying generous, but you got to understand, like, they didn't have to, did I just lose my, no, I'm good. They didn't have to, they had to give us, they had to participate, apparently, they were being ordered to. But they didn't have to give us their blood, sweat, and their tears. They didn't have to give us their feedback and their support. And I'm not kidding when I say I'm pretending to be a sergeant. So first of all, even in training, extremely venerated and talented actors like NoelFisher are letting me, who they know has no, technical prowess beyond their own, and probably not even as much, turn around and bark orders at them and yell, "You get in there," and the thing, and because everybody wanted to do this thing right, they were game. But the soldiers were the same way. I mean, I would literally turn around and yell at my platoon, "Everybody, you cover the roof and you move in there, do the thing in the take." And then at the end, I would go back to one of the guys in particular who was an active duty E6 sergeant, and I'd be like, "Hey, first of all, sorry for yelling at you. And second, did I do that right?" And the kind of response I would get is like, "Yeah, man, you guys look like a squad leader. You're doing great. I mean, if you want, if you yeah, exactly. If you want to tune it up, you could do this and that and the third thing." And I'd say, "Oh, those are great notes." And then we would go action, and I would yell what he had just told me right in his face, and he would let me do it. So I mean, like, I don't know where you get that kind of support ever. So
I also had quite a few, active duty soldiers come up to me and say, "Thank you so much for making this project and for participating in it." And it's just like, I don't know, it's just so much humility and genuine gratitude, and it really just was overwhelming for me because I thought, gosh, I'm such a tiny part in what everyone's doing here at Fort Hood, and the sacrifices that they're making. The fact that they had gratitude for us was really overwhelming.
Yeah, I think even just to speak on that, it's that there's that general team mentality really permeates the military, and so no one's used to taking credit for really anything. So the fact that this story was getting told was just universally supported, like 1,000% by everyone. Actually, like one of the background actors on the truck was actually had participated in the battle in Black Sunday for me. So we got to hear a lot of the kind of stories about what had actually gone down. So yeah, that was kind of something that was throughout the entire shoot, which was really amazing.
Since we're in a room full of actors, is it a different challenge to be portraying somebody who's real, whether they're still around or not? Talk about that a little bit, because sometimes you're playing fictional characters, but then how is it different when it's something like this?
Well, I think the responsibility is so much greater. When you're playing someone who is who's alive, you know, and is still alive, especially, you know, and is a 3-star general, you're like, shit, I better get this right. Oh, what?
Remember April 4th when all the soldiers came to the field for the memorial, and then they all went out afterwards, and they met you for the first time?
Yeah, yeah.
What did they say?
Well, I just started filming, and a lot of these guys are fortunate to have met either the family members or the actual soldiers that they played. And like you were saying, I didn't get to meet Gary Volesky until later. But, you know, I was offered this role, and it wasn't something I auditioned for, so there's that pressure to begin with, like, oh God, did they make the wrong choice? And I got there, and we had just started, and it was a memorial of Black Sunday, and all these soldiers came, and Martha Raddatz and another one of the soldiers threw this kickoff party for us at this honky-tonk in Colleen, and we were hanging out, and Eric was bringing me around to introduce me to a lot of the guys that served under Gary, keeping in mind these soldiers to this day say, I'll follow that guy into hell. If he called me today, I would follow him into hell. Gary Volesky's a great man. And so Eric Bourquin walks me up and he's like, this is Michael Kelly, he's playing Gary Volesky. And they would just go, really? All right. I mean, good luck, but those are some really big boots to fill. I'm like, it's hard enough, man. Like, give me a break. But at the same time, it did inspire you, encourage you, whatever it is, to do it. Not that I wasn't already, but just even more. You know, like, this is a man these guys consider to be God. Like, and how do you play God if you're not Morgan Freeman? Was my thought.
Anyone else?
I've played a few real people in my life, and I've been really lucky because they've all been, you know, very open with me. I've found that at least the best way to open it up for me would be to be on the phone or to be in person and just to say, I know how strange this is. Like, you know, it truly is a bizarre situation for your life to be told in this way, and I'm going to ask you some questions, and if there's anything you don't want to answer, just say pass. We don't have to talk about it again, but this is going to be between me and you, and you know, this is intimate, and you know, this is just to tell your story and to tell it truthfully, and I've been really lucky to have gotten really nice responses from that.
You said you get to meet Gina tonight, right?
Yeah, I haven't met her in person. No. Oh, wow. Yeah, I feel like I know. I wrote her today, and I said I feel like I know you, so it's kind of weird to meet you, you know. But I'm so excited. Yeah.
And just to brag on some of my friends here and up there, I mean, we just had, Kate wasn't able to make it, neither were you. Anyway, there was a screening in Texas at Fort Hood for the base, and a lot of the cast went, and a lot of the soldiers came, and a lot of the families came. And afterwards, I went to the restroom to fix my makeup because I hadn't seen it before, and it landed heavy in my heart. And as I was washing my hands, I couldn't hear, I couldn't see them, but I could hear women behind me in the stalls. And one of them said, oh my God, she played me better than I played me. And I can't even imagine. And the other one was just, I mean, they were raving and weeping and sharing these conversations. And they came out, and I was like, I'm so sorry to sort of be overhearing. And one of them was Tomas Young's mom. And she was beyond just, it was incredible. And then I saw her with the actress who played her later at the thing, and they had their arms around each other, and there were all these tears. There's so much goodwill. And I think to me, it was a testament to how hard everybody worked. You know, I mean, Kate and I were there for a couple of weeks. These guys were there for months. I mean, I'd text Kelly. I'd be like, so how'd it go? He'd be like, we're still here. I was like, oh, my bad. They poured themselves. Yeah, totally. I was like, dude, I've had kids. Like, what are you talking about? They worked their asses off.
2 movies. John or Noel, how about with you? I mean, I know you didn't get a chance to talk to Tomas, obviously, but was there a different pressure playing real life people?
Yeah, I mean, everybody's touched on it pretty perfectly. There's a sense of responsibility there that's totally different than anything else I've ever experienced before. And yeah, you really, that's why having the family members accept you and want the story to be told is so important. I mean, Kathy shared the only letter that that she received from Tomas from Iraq. I got to read that, and that was he probably wrote that maybe a week, 5 days before Black Sunday. So it's that kind of thing. It makes it real. And it just makes it live in your heart in a very different way than I've experienced before. And I think that's it. It really kind of pushed everyone from every single person involved with making this. I think felt that, and I think that shows.
And one of the things I think we all agree that this show is about, and we want people to take away from it, is that it's a story about individuals. It's a story about individual human beings who are ultimately the ones that pay the cost of war. It's paid by individuals. And I think that at its best, this series could advance the conversation in our country and around the world about just who does that fall upon? Who does the cost of war fall upon? Because it's not organizations, it's single people. And so I know that we all came in to this with the sense of responsibility that we wanted to bring to life three-dimensional humans, and not in our case superheroes, not gods of war. I wanted to try to find a way to tell Eric's story in a way that felt, yes, this is clearly a man who had extraordinary training and behaved extraordinarily in unbelievable circumstances. But that doesn't mean that he wasn't scared and didn't experience doubt and didn't experience dread and didn't hesitate, didn't feel shame, didn't feel pain. And one of the really important moments for me in this was sitting down with Eric for one of the first times, still very intimidated by him at the time. And I said, hey, just trying to find a smart question. I said, hey, what was a moment that you realized for the first time that you were good at soldiering? And he said, I thought every day of my life in the military, I expected someone to walk up to me and say, hey, we just figured it out. You have no idea what the F you're doing. And I just thought, thanks, man, because what he was trying to let me know is I wasn't ready for this. I don't know how to be a war hero, and he very much doesn't consider himself one. And suddenly it set me free to say, oh, okay, the fact that I don't feel ready to do this is actually the thing that makes me ready to do this.
And also the fact, yeah, it's really nice. But also the fact that this wasn't supposed to happen. Like, everybody went into this thinking, oh, this is just going to be a routine, making sure things are safe, and it didn't go that way. I don't have a question there. It was a great part of the story, just knowing. I think as a viewer, you get locked in right away, going like, these people didn't know what they were getting themselves into, so let's hope they make it out.
Yeah. Can I ask a quick question? Yeah. Do we have any vets? Anyone here? I saw a hat. Right on. Thank you for being here. Glad to see you, man.
For actors in the audience, sometimes you do have to do combat if you're doing a war film. Talk about the challenges of that. You guys just doing some of that, like whether it's holding the guns and coming around a corner the right way and that sort of thing. Talk about the work that goes into that.
One of the things that I found, like we had 2 weeks of 3 weeks of training with some ex-Rangers actually, and one of the things that I found really eye-opening was we trained on the Fort Hood urban training environment. So there's all these old Soviet-style buildings for blocks and blocks, and that plus the set that had been extended, and something that became really, really clear really quickly was how just impossible that situation is to actually try and stay in control of in any kind of realistic way. I mean, we would have one of the Rangers kind of go out, and we'd have some target that we were supposed to, usually you would get told to bring us somewhere, and go do something in that building, go clear that building or what have you. And one solitary Ranger would just be out all on his own, just wreaking havoc on us with like blanks, and we would just had no. It was just impossible. You don't know where anything's coming from. That was really eye opening because there's just endless windows and doorways, and everything is a shooter, and that was really eye opening for me.
And also, while we're thanking you for your service, I just plain old nuts and bolts of it had no idea how hard soldiering was. Like it is just the single most exhausting, like, physical undertaking I've ever experienced in my life. And we were wearing styrofoam in place of your 35-pound metal plates. And anytime I wanted a break from patrolling, I could just threaten to call my agent. So, and I understand you didn't have that. It's exhausting, and these guys really put us through it, and their standard of excellence was very, very high, and we were really glad it was, and part of what I think shows up on the screen that I care about very much is the camaraderie that we ended up feeling amongst ourselves, because for 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks, we just got our butts kicked every day. And you just can't, as he's saying, you can't anticipate everything that urban warfare throws at you. You can study and study. We learned, buddy bounding. We learned fire team drills. We learned squad drills. We learned how to clear houses. We learned how to, cover as we bound down the sides of Humvees, down streets, and to the point where a lot of the movement that you'll see in the series as it goes on, a lot of it is being improvised by the actors as they go, because some of these, shots are just too big to specifically tweak everything. So we really got to use the training that they gave us. And so when we move down a street, we're doing it as we were trained to, not as we're being specifically told to in the moment. And that made us, that just further added to the burden that we already felt and wanted to tell this story as accurately as possible, because it's an incredibly difficult job that these guys do.
There's a great moment in these first 2 hours where Gary tells LeAnn that she's a hero to him. So that was really beautiful, because I love that the show really does honor the wives and the families. Can you talk about that, why that's important to just the show itself and what these families go through?
Yeah, and I added heroine because his exact words were my hero, my heroine, was something that I had seen him say. And that, to me, is what sets us apart from your typical military movie where you see the hero dying in the hero's arms, and it's sad and it breaks your heart. But when you see the women at home with the son that's doesn't know if his dad's coming home or will never see his dad, or the mom and the dad in California who are waiting to find out if their son's dead or not, like, that's what this show does so brilliantly. And I think that no matter what side you lie on politically, whether you believe in war or you don't believe in war, you believe it's a necessity, whatever you believe, it doesn't matter, because these are people who are there fighting for our freedom so that we can all sit up here and have fun, and you guys get to come to a cool screening in the middle of a day. Like, I mean, these are freedoms that we enjoy in life because these people are not just the soldiers, but the women at home, the families, and you see that war just spreads like this, and death spreads like that it's not just this moment of two people dying in each other's arms. It just stretches so far beyond that. And so, if anything, what I think, this does is it tells people, like, this is war, and this is what it really means. And to respect people like this gentleman when they come home. We have a real problem in our country right now with veteran care. Unacceptable rate of 22 people committing suicide a day, veterans. It's unacceptable. And these are all things that maybe people watch this and it'll bring up these things, and it'll make people think. got a little off target there, sorry. But that's it's something I feel really strongly about, and the families are a very big part of that.
I certainly agree. And, I think from a woman's perspective, just start hitting me when I'm wrong, but it feels like from this woman's perspective, often in a war movie, I didn't say you. I said Kate. Keep your hands off me, Kelly. Good God. It's a marriage. So often a woman in a war movie, if she even exists for a brief moment, and there's one of us. One of the things that I loved about this, most of my scenes were with other women. And we did that sort of first insane first couple of days with Kate, but then, we had scenes with groups of actresses, and a war movie that passes the Bechdel test is rare. It also is an opportunity to tell many different women's stories. There isn't one way that women react to war, which is the story that we usually tell because there's only one in the story. You have, women who are virulently anti-war. You have women who have no political affiliation. You have mothers who've lost sons. You have sisters who are watching brothers come home. And that multiplicity of female experience, I think, supports what you're saying, that this is, I don't see this as a war story. This is a story about devotion. This is a story about people who choose to be devoted to each other, whether it's a husband and a wife, whether it's brothers in combat, whether it's women at home going, I will be your family until he gets back, and I will put you back on your feet if he doesn't. That's a beautiful thing to me, and something that made me proud to be a part of it.
I read an interview you did, it might have been with us, about the Bechdel test and the fact that these scenes are women talking about women. It's not just the women fretting about their husbands, which is one thing I really appreciated about the film. Yeah.
Something actually to further what Sarah's talking about, I think, is that one of the things I absolutely love about the series is that it doesn't shy away from the complexity of the subject that it's exploring. It really does a really wonderful job of exploring how far these things spread. There's an entire episode that's dedicated to the interpreter of the platoon later on in the series. That's another example of seeing this from a multitude of angles that I think is really important for the discussion.
Kate, I wanted to ask you about the episode that focuses on Jason's character. Jason Ritter's not here, but do we see more of that relationship? I haven't seen that episode yet, but do we see more of their relationship?
It's interesting because as you were talking, I was thinking, we met, shook hands, and sobbed and sort of just were very vulnerable with each other immediately. I met Jason. I think he was one of the actors that arrived and had no time to sort of prepare at all just because of his schedule, and so he showed up on set and we sort of shook hands and we're married basically. But I know you guys had that, but the scene that you saw with us is really the only scene we have. And as you were talking, I thought it's so interesting that actually. Normally in shows like this or movies like this, the relationship between the husband and the wife would be the more sort of explored relationship. But actually, I felt much more married to you.
Yeah. You're definitely my leading man in this show. Nothing personal.
But I did.
It's awkward all of a sudden.
The complexities of a relationship really was between myself and your character, which I love. Yeah. Because I was thinking about how we were shooting this, and we really got deep into it together and very quickly. So, and Jason and I joked about how we were fortunately, he's not here, but he's such a wonderful, kind, amazing human being that it was very easy to be immediately married to someone so great, and it was effortless. But I did feel more married to this one.
Oh yeah, no, Michael's really nice too. Is that what you want me to say?
Exactly. I'm just echoing what everybody's already saying, but we were asked recently in an interview why there aren't more war stories that take apart the home front the way that this does. And I thought about it and I said, I think honestly it's a testament to the writing because it's, there's just more elements of war that are going to lend themselves immediately and easily to dramatization and you know, making for a compelling. People want to watch stuff blow up, but it takes an investigative mind, and I think we've got an incredible team of writers, and especially our showrunner Miko Alan, who went in and found, well, yeah, but where are the nuances? What's the specificity of the sacrifice that's made by the families? That, you know, as I say, anybody in their right mind is going to say, yes, of course, we owe a debt to the families that let their, you know, that watch their loved ones go to war. But what is that? How do they pay? And I think they pay in, it's subtler, but what does the nervous cup of coffee look like? And what is the impossible conversation with your kid when they ask, is mommy or daddy coming home? And what is the sleepless night? And what is the, you know, it takes, it's a more nuanced investigation. And I think that this script really gets to that. And I think the incredible performances that these ladies turn and the rest of the ladies in the cast turn in show you that in a way that, I don't know, maybe will open the door for more of that story to be told in war films.
And Martha too. I mean, she really. I mean, we owe all of this to her. I mean, to me, she's my hero. She's just an extraordinary human being. And I can't remember. Was she talking to? She was talking. I can't remember what soldier she'd been talking to about this particular ambush, and he said, "You have to go meet the families."
Oh, yeah.
And it was really through a conversation that she had, and I wish I could remember exactly which soldier.
General Corelli.
And he had said, really who you need to speak to are the families at home. And so that's how she then went to Fort Hood and started talking to all the families, and how it became this kind of revelatory way of telling the full scope of the story, you know, so.
Well, The Long Road Home airs November 7th on Nat Geo. Make sure to watch all the episodes because they'll air every Tuesday night. After that, thanks everybody for being here. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.